Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Adams Brothers Podcast. We are here this evening with Miss Jumorrow Johnson. She is an employee at the Broward County State Attorney's Office, and she works for the State Attorney himself, Mr. Harold Pryor, who we had on our show when he was running for the State Attorney, and he did win. And now Jumorrow is working for Harold Pryor down at the Broward County State Attorney's Office. So Jumorrow, welcome to the Adams Brothers Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It's always great to be here and having this dialogue with y'all. Thank y'all for bringing this information and this platform to the community. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anytime we can help educate the community, you know, we're always here. We just a phone call away anytime you ever need us to, and you know that.
You know that. You always welcome on here because you have so much information. That's why I always tell you, you're one of our special guests. So always make yourself available if anything you want to talk about.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So Jumorrow, go ahead and tell us a little bit of something about you and your background here in Broward County and what are some of the things that you do.
Oh, wow. So, well, I am a true born, proud community member of Deerfield Beach, born and raised, born and bred. I'm from the field, raised on First Terrace, AKA the alley.
Right.
I am, Deerfield Beach High School graduate, very proud of that. So right now, as you stated earlier, I am currently employed as the Director of Community Outreach and the Anti-Human Trafficking Coordinator for the Broward County State Attorney's Office for the 17th Circuit. So that covers all of Broward County. Apart from that, I am the current sitting president for the Broward Human Trafficking Coalition, which I have been the sitting president for about 4 going on 5 years. And the Broward Human Trafficking Coalition is the largest nonprofit organization in Broward County with the sole purpose and mission and the goal to eradicate human trafficking by way of education and awareness. And I also own my own company called She Me Her LLC, which is a consulting company that I have where I offer my services to community-based organizations where I consult with them about best practices, about how they can best serve the populations that they are serving as it reflects human trafficking, sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, and domestic violence. So I contract with different agencies throughout Broward County. They bring me in to kind of like review what they're doing, gauge what they're doing, and then help them do what they're doing better.
All right. Well, you are certainly pretty well-rounded here. You have an impressive background. I can tell you that much. So
to God be the glory.
To God be the glory. April is also Child Abuse and Sexual Assault Month. So we want to talk about child abuse and sexual assault and how it affects everyone. I mean, not just Black people, white people. I mean, it affects every color, every race. Tell us about child abuse and sexual assault and how it impacts. What is the impact here in South Florida and Broward County here in Florida?
Okay, so April is observed as Child Abuse Awareness Month, and it's also observed as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so, when we're talking about child abuse, we're talking about one key factor is the child welfare system, right? So as of right now, there's over 450,000 children in the United States child welfare system and foster care system, over 450,000 children, right? And so when we're talking about child abuse, we know that the gateway to kids ending up in foster care, ending up in the child welfare system is there has been some allegation, right, of child abuse in whatever form. Whether it has been physical abuse, whether it's been sexual abuse, whether it's been neglect, abandonment, or whatever the factor may be, right? So what April does is try to raise awareness and get people talking about and having the dialogue about what's going on and how to prevent child abuse. Now, we do know that children that experience childhood sexual abuse 70 to 90% of children that experience childhood sexual abuse will end up in the sex trafficking industry. 70 to 90%, right? And so we know that there is a huge pathway and precursor from children that are sexually abused to the sex trafficking industry, right? And so when we're talking about child abuse, we really need to look at what are the causes. You know, you see the action, you hear the action, but like, let's examine some of the pathways and precursors. A lot of times when COVID hit, and I said this, I had this conversation, we had this dialogue, people were pushing, shut down, close the school, shut down, not having the wherewithal and understanding that school is the safest place in the world for a lot of these kids. That's their safe place, right? Because they're at home with their abuser. They're home with the person that is abusing them. They're home with the person that's physically abusing them, sexually abusing them, psychologically abusing them. That's home is not a safe place for everybody. And people assume that home is a safe place, but that's not the case for everybody. And so what we need to do now, what we need to start doing as a society, as a community, is start looking at things that don't affect us, because they do affect us. They do affect us. And so we had all of these children. We had all of these children that were stuck at home with their abusers via COVID. And the school board has also released, there are thousands of children that have not returned back to school. Where are those kids? Where are those children? Where are they, right? And so the new superintendent, Superintendent Cartwright, who I've met, I've had an amazing dialogue with her. And she had sent people door to door, knocking on the doors of these families, of these children who had not returned to school. Look, where are these kids? You understand what I'm saying? Right, and so when we're talking about child abuse, child abuse is not just physical or sexual. You have children that they're not eating, right? So you're shutting the schools down. The only time children were being able to eat was when they went to school, right? They got breakfast and they got lunch at school, right? They got a break from their abuser at school, right? And so, when we're looking at the statistics and we're talking about people that violate children, that abuse children, we always have this mentality, and we teach this mentality of stranger danger, right? We teach that. But what people don't know and understand is that statistics prove that 60% of children that are abused or molested are abused and molested by a family member. 60%. 30% of children that are abused and molested and violated by a close family friend or a trusted adult. Only 10% of children that are abused and molested and violated by a stranger. So what happens is that we know that 90% of children that are abused or molested by people that they know, love, and trust. It's not always the stranger.
Wow. Now, right? Let me ask you, the beatings that we used to get back in our days, would that be considered child abuse in 2022? Because I know we used to get especially to the Josephine Adams.
It would, because back in the day, listen, we got beatings with extension cords, with what else, water hoses, listen, shoes, whatever they could pick up and whatever they could grab their hands on and throw at your head. And if it hit you didn't duck and it hit your head, then that was too bad for you. You should have ducked. You should have moved faster, right? So yes, the answer to your question is yes. Today, that would absolutely be considered child abuse. But let me just say this though. When we're talking about the issues that families today are faced, we know that stress, produces a certain type of behavior,
Yes.
right? We know that that is true. While it doesn't cause it, because people like to say, oh, men beat their wives because they're drunk. Alcoholism causes domestic violence. That's not true. The behavior is enhanced by alcoholism, but men don't beat their wives because they're drunk. They beat their wives because that is who they are. They're wife beaters, right? Now, what happens is when we're talking about child abuse, you're talking about people who cannot, once they get to a certain level of stress, what they do is they exhibit that stress in the only way that they know how, and that is to lash out, right?
Yes.
And so what happens is that one, they're lashing out due to stress. And then on another scale, going back to what you're saying, you have people that are living out what they've learned, right? They're living out what they've learned. Yes. Children learn what they live, and then they grow up and they live out what they've learned until they're taught something different, right? Now, I didn't beat my son or chastise my son the way, like the way, you know, my mom did me,
like
right?
What we got.
Right, because I knew, and you know, over the years, the laws have changed, because like if I would have gone to jail, right? I would have gone to jail, right? Back then, it wasn't none of that back then. Yeah, and back then also, you got to understand the implicit bias and the bias that took in place, because people, they weren't concerned about what Black people were doing to their Black children. That was none of their business. They weren't concerned about that, right? Right. Because when you started talking about the child welfare system, and you know, it was, you know, back in the day, the majority of the children that were in foster care and foster home and orphanages were white children, because it's always been an inherent thought in this country to protect white, right? Yes, so exactly, right? I mean, so back then, you know, we wasn't in foster care. People weren't calling DCFs. You know, we come to school with our black eye and welts all on your legs and stuff like that. People weren't calling that in, because, you know, what Black people did to their kids was nobody's business. Right. Right. And sadly to say, we still see that. You know, I had an event this past January called Sound the Alarm, where I partnered with the city of Lauderhill and Lauderhill Police Department, where I was raising awareness about the lack of media attention, response, and respect that Black, Indigenous, and people of color get when they go missing. So I had this huge event. I had an awareness walk, and we had this huge event. And my focus and goal of that event was to get people talking about how people really believe and have this really inherent belief system that Black people just don't need the same amount of protection as white people do. Right. That Black people don't require the same amount of care and protection that white people do. That Black people are capable of sustaining pain, more pain than white people do, right? That Black women and Black girls don't require the same amount of protection that white girls do, right? And so when you're talking about child abuse, man, you got to go back into the all of this things, this inherent belief system that Black bodies and Black lives just really don't matter, right? Because we're not entitled to the same protections as other people are entitled to. Right? So the humanness, we are dehumanized because of our skin color. We are dehumanized because of our skin color, right? And so what happens is that when we seek help and we need help, we are often looked at as though we're exaggerating, or two, we brought it on ourselves. We brought it on ourselves. We asked for it.
By the way you dress, maybe like by the way you dress,
right. Or we're trying to get over. We gotta hustle. We're trying to get over, right? Right. And so when we're talking about Child Abuse Awareness Month, we need to be talking about all children, right? Because I believe all children are children.
Right.
Children are children. However, when you're talking about child abuse, you gotta really start talking about how we really need to start paying more attention to our Black and brown children. And we are at fault. We are at fault. We as a Black community, we contribute and we perpetuate the post-traumatic slave syndrome that has been passed down from generation to generation, that what goes on in this house stays in this house, and that it is our responsibility, regardless of what we all do to each other, it is our responsibility to protect each other. However, what that does is that creates monsters like R. Kelly.
Jumorrow, what are some of the ways that we can prevent child abuse?
Well, first of all, we need to go back to it takes a village. We need to go back to that mentality. Let me tell you something there. I remember when I was growing up, I was on the side of the house kissing a boy. I was on the side of the house kissing a boy, and my neighbor saw me.
I'm just waiting on the end of this right here.
My neighbor saw me. And of course, what did he do?
He waited till your mom got home and he told your mother.
Mama and daddy, he waited for both of them.
You got two beatings, maybe with the switch and an extension cord.
Both of them to get home, right? Waited for both of them to get home. And so, let me tell you something, I couldn't stand that man for a long time. I really I couldn't stand that man for a long time. But if he had not done what he did, and I would have continued to sneak and do what I was doing, I might not have the life I have, right?
That's right.
Right. I mean, right? So my thing is, when I say we need to get back to the mentality of it takes a village, we need to be concerned about our neighbor. We need to be concerned about our neighbor's children. And I get it. I understand. And I know, because what we have broken people having babies broken, growing up broken, having babies broken, growing up broken, having babies broken. And I get it. And I understand that we have people now that are walking around, even in our community, where you better not say none of them about their child. You better not say nothing to their child.
Because back in the day when we grew up, our parents could beat my best friend, but and his mother wouldn't say anything. I mean, when you say it takes a village, that's what used to happen back when we grew up, back in the 70s and the 80s and everything. But that has changed. Now you hit somebody's child these days, they want to fight you and pull a gun on you and everything. And then you might not, on top of that, you may even get arrested. You will get arrested.
You will get arrested. But my thing is this. Okay, so we have to evolve with the times that we are in, right? So it's not always about, okay, you can beat somebody's child and send them home. But a lot of times, because we're lacking knowledge in this era, in the day and age that we in, all it takes, you'll be surprised how a word, a conversation with a child would change their life, because they're not getting fed. They're not getting those seeds dropped at home. You understand what I'm saying? So, when I'm talking about we need to get back to the village mentality, I'm not talking about just going out and you seeing somebody's child doing something and you beat the child and you sit them home. I'm talking about taking the time out to mentor, taking the time out to teach. I tell people all the time, they're like, Jumorrow, well, what is one of the reasons that you do what you do? You know what I'm trying to do, y'all? I'm trying to be who I needed when I was younger.
That's right.
Be who you needed when you were younger. Give what you didn't get, what you wish you had when you were younger. If you needed somebody to pull your coattail, pull you to the side and say, "Hey, look, young man, look, I know I'm not your daddy. I know I'm not even related to you, but but let me just 2 minutes of your time. You know, what you're doing, you may not see it's wrong right now. And I don't have a right to tell you what's right or wrong, because that's up for you to decide, because you have free will. But let me just explain to you the consequences of what you're doing. Let's talk about let's not talk about whether it's right or wrong. Let's talk about the consequences. Because for every action, there's a reaction. And for every choice, there's a consequence. So I don't want to beat you over the head and tell you what's right or what's wrong, or tell you you right or you wrong or whatever. But let's just talk about the consequences for the choice you're about to make, or the choices that you're making. There are ways to have these conversations. And what happens is, we need to be, as adults, as seasoned adults, we need to be willing. We need to be willing to understand that we can no longer approach children the way that our mothers and our grandmothers approached us, because that's not the world that they're living in. They're exposed to too much. So we got to adapt to new ways in how we're going to dialogue and converse with our children. We need to talk to them and not at them.
And Jumorrow, what is considered child abuse and neglect in the state of Florida? So people will be very
okay. Clear. So child abuse and neglect is any physical, sexual, or emotional action that is imposed upon a child by a mother, a father, or a caregiver. So whether there be extensive physical harm, where there's bruising, where there's inappropriate sexual activity, or the child is not being fed, clothed, if the home is in a state where it is putting the child's life at risk, because you have these homes where the conditions of the home are so deplorable that it can actually cause physical harm because of the different bacteria. So when you're talking about abuse and neglect, these are the things that you're talking about. Children not being fed, children not being clothed, children being physically harmed, children being sexually harmed, children not being afforded the education they're supposed to have, children not being sent to school, things like that.
Okay. And what can I do if I suspect child abuse or child neglect? What can I do if I see my neighbor doing something? Is it a way that I can do it anonymously without, because you have to live next to these people sometimes.
Like a hotline. Do you have a hotline number?
Something anonymously.
Absolutely. There is a hotline. Florida has a child abuse hotline. However, let me just say this: the state of Florida, the law in Florida states that every person 18 years of age or older is a mandatory reporter. A mandatory reporter, right? So if you suspect or you know for a fact that a child is being abused in any way, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, abandonment, if you suspect this is occurring to a child, I urge you to call 1-800-96-ABUSE. 1-800-96-ABUSE. That is the Florida Abuse Hotline, and you can report anonymously. The only people that can't report anonymously are people like law enforcement, people like me and stuff like that. But citizens, lay people, you can report anonymously if you suspect the child is being abused in any form, any way, any fashion. I implore you to please report it.
And what age can a child legally be left home? Because I heard different numbers thrown out. What age?
Between 12 and 13. That's for here for Florida, between 12 and 13.
And they can legally be left home.
I'm sorry.
And they can legally be left home alone at 12 or 13. Okay. I thought I was always told it was 16.
12 to 13. They call them, those are the, you ever heard the term latchkey kid?
Right, I heard that before.
Yeah, I think I
That's-
did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Now, when you start talking about, you know how, and you have a lot of parents that have really been held accountable for, and I just said, you know, some people are just doing the best they can, y'all. You know
Oh,
what
yeah,
I'm saying?
absolutely. Oh,
Some
absolutely.
people are doing the best they can. So when you have people who they have multiple children, and they are working and they're doing the best they can to put food on the table for their children. The fact that they have a lot of children doesn't make them a bad person, right? You know, especially when they're trying to take care of their children. So you have parents that have kids, you know, they got 10, 8, 7, 6, and they'll leave the 10-year-old home with the kids, you know, while it's not legally responsible to do that. And you can't do that. And sadly to say, I know some parents who have been caught up in some very, very sad situations because accidents happen, things happen, because there's an age limit for a reason, right?
Mhm.
Because things are happening and things occur, and children are not able to process or think in a timely manner whether to do this or to do that or to act. So there's a reason that law is in place, because that with that age level comes a level of maturity. Right. So there's a reason for that, you know. So leaving your 9-year-old home with your 2, 3, and 4-year-old, while you may be doing the best thing you can, that's really not the wisest thing for you to do, right? You know, but
our parents didn't even do that. Our parents didn't do that. I mean, we may have been 9, but our brothers and sisters were 15 at the time, so they were able to watch us, and they took very good care of us. They were forced to do it back in those days, and I do understand it. You know, sometimes you may have to run out to Walmart or whatever, and you know, and you don't want to tag along, have 5 or 6 kids tagging along at the same time. So you may want to leave them home for a half an hour, just long enough to go get dinner, but you want to have someone there that's somewhat responsible, you know, to look after the younger kids.
Or have if you have a relationship with your neighbor, look, I need to run to the store. Can you check in? You know, I won't be gone no more than 20, 30 minutes. Can you check in on my kids? I left my kids here, you know, but you know, you're leaving small children home all day like that. Yeah. All day. And you know, they're coming home listen, again, you have people doing the best they can. You know, you got single mothers out here, man, working 2 and 3 jobs, right? So you got the 10-year-old sister. It's his or her responsibility to come home, get their little brothers and sisters together, help them with their homework, pop something, you know, get them fed, get them bathed, and things like that. And I get it, and I understand it, but that is not their responsibility. Those are not their children. Those are your children.
Absolutely. Nowadays, you know, we have aftercare and after school care, and you know, summer recreation, and all kinds of things that you could and
that you can put them in.
You can put your kids in without leaving them home.
But people still do it.
Yes,
they still doing it.
You see it on the news every day.
They doing it
on the news every day.
And then you have fires break out, and then you have all these children, their lives are lost. You know what I'm saying? You know, people are still doing it. People are still doing it. And I'm not saying, and I'm not here to judge anybody or pass judgment, because I don't have a right to judge people's choices when I don't know what their options are. So I try to really refrain from stereotyping and passing judgment. But once we give you that information, we give you that knowledge, and we inform you, like, these are the consequences. If you do this, you know, this is what's going to happen, because this is not what the law allows you to do.
Absolutely. And the best way to do that is through education.
Right.
You know, you're doing, exactly what you're doing, because I know you had you had a seminar in Lauderhill, and you had one in Miramar, and now you're trying to bring it up north to the north end of the county, which would be Deerfield, Pompano, and you would like to get to the EPAT Larkin Center, and hopefully once we get the Johnny L. Tigner Center built up here in
Right.
Deerfield Beach, you could
Ooh,
Definitely.
that'd
do,
be
I
great.
mean, right here at your, in your home city, right here, where you can have
Mhm.
your own seminars right there, but
Right.
Yeah.
will there be a seminar coming soon to the EPAT Larkin Center Deerfield area pretty soon? Are
Right.
you trying to set that up right now?
Yeah, so what happens is the seminar that you're talking about, it's the workshop you're talking about is the seal and expungement workshop.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
that workshop is coordinated by the Broward County State Attorney's Office, right? And so what the sealing and expungement workshop is, it allows community people who may have been arrested or, been on probation, have some things on their record that they want to have either removed or sealed. This workshop that we produce, that we coordinate, that we facilitate, this, we walk them through the process for free. For free, the workshop is free. We walk them through the entire process of what they need to do to get their records sealed and expunged. Now, we're not just bringing these people out and educating them and telling them what to do. We're providing them with the paperwork. We have the Broward Clerk of Court present to print out everything that they need. We have BSO on site to take their prints. We have attorneys on site to help them complete the application that they have to submit to FDLE, which is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And when they leave our workshop, they leave with their application complete. They leave with their documentation from the clerk of court. They leave with their fingerprint cards done. They leave with their paperwork notarized. We even provide them with the envelope they need to mail to FDLE.
Wow.
The only thing they're required to do is purchase their $75 money order, which is required through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, that they have to submit to FDLE with their application.
And
So
how
when
has
they
the
leave,
turnout? I'm sorry, go on, I'm sorry.
we have, no, we have been able, so in Lauderhill, we were able to service over 45% of those that showed up. And this past workshop we did in Miramar, of all of the people that showed up, we were able to service 41%.
That is
Now,
a great
not
number.
everybody qualifies. Not everybody qualifies, right? But the people that do, this is a huge benefit, and because you have people with stuff on their record, they don't even have to have that stuff on their record. That stuff qualifies to get sealed or expunged. And these people can get licensed to own businesses. They can get jobs that they want to get that they never could get before, right? They can get, it's just, it opens so many doors for them. It really, really does.
And both of these programs are through the Broward County State Attorney's Office, right?
The sealing and expungement workshop, the sealing and expungement workshop that we do for free is a workshop that is offered through the Broward County State Attorney's Office. Yes.
And the child abuse and sexual assault, that's also through the Broward County State Attorney's Office as well?
Well, those are just campaigns. So
Okay.
those are national campaigns.
Okay.
So when I say Child Abuse Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month, these are nationally observed campaigns that are held nationally throughout the year.
Right.
They're just observed through different months. So like October is always going to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month, right? January is always going to be Human Trafficking Awareness Month. April is always going to be Child Abuse Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. These are just national campaigns that happen nationally. But that sealing and expungement workshop is an actual community outreach program that is facilitated and coordinated through the Broward County State Attorney's Office, through Harold Pryor's office, in conjunction and partnership with Brenda Foreman, who's our clerk of court, with Sheriff Tony, with the BSO, because people have to listen, when you're applying to get your record sealed or expunged, you got to come to us, you got to get the packet, you got to get the paperwork, you got to go to the clerk of court and request your record information, which you got to pay for. You got to go get your fingerprints done, which you got to pay for, right? If you don't know how to do it, you're going to pay an attorney to fill out the paperwork for you. And then you got to have your $75 application fee that you got to submit to FDLE. We do all that for free. The only thing they have to pay for is their $75 processing fee for FDLE. We do everything for free. We make everything available for them. We have everybody on site. We have our offices on site. Brenda Foreman's office is on site. BSO is there. We have over 60 to 70 volunteers walking people from station to station to the process to get what they need done. We accept walk-ins. I implemented a pre-registration process when I got to the state attorney's office to kind of like help us move it along. So people can submit an application via our website. I have 5 attorneys on the team that they're on my review team where they will pull that information. They'll pull all of the criminal history, they'll review it, and then they'll say, okay, this person qualifies, this person doesn't. I personally contact every person that qualifies and give them an appointment.
Wow. That's impressive.
And if they don't qualify, I personally send them an email out saying you don't qualify and this is why.
Hey, you just all over the place, man. You really had, really, I have to tip my hat to you, for the work that you're doing and to help these people get that record sealed and expunged, and the work that you're doing out here with the child abuse and the sexual assault. And I tell you, you're just doing a fantastic job. And I tell you, it's just wonderful, man. We love to talk to you and just help you to put that knowledge out there to people. Hopefully they'll watch our podcast and go on in and on our channel and follow us. And this is some good information that people just need to just sit down while they're twiddling their fingers, looking at the phone, just put the video on and just look at it. I mean, you could gain a ton of knowledge just by watching these videos and listening to this stuff. And
and people don't know and understand the difference, Daryl, with sealing and expungement. But when you're talking about sealing and expungement of records, like especially with expungement, that's self-explanatory. When you're talking about expunging a record, you're talking about wiping it out. It's gone. It's removed. There's no trace or nothing of it. Now with sealing, that's different. Because when you're talking about sealing a record, you're talking about it's no longer like a made public record, right? Only certain people have access to it, which is still also a good thing. It's no longer a public record, but you have people out here that are eligible. They're eligible for this process. And they just don't know it. For it, like you can get arrested for anything, right? People think the chief law enforcement agencies are the police department, but it's not. Harold Pryor is the chief law enforcement agent in the land.
Yes, he is.
He's the chief law enforcement agent in the land because you can get arrested for anything. Once they prepare that probable cause affidavit, that packet, and then they send it to our office, our attorney, Harold Pryor's attorneys, they decide whether or not that case is even going to be filed on, right? They, just because you were arrested for it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be filed. The charge is going to be filed. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the charge is going to be filed as is, because our office has the autonomy to mitigate or aggravate any charge, right? And records that qualify for sealing and expungement, say for an example, you got arrested for aggravated battery, right? Which is a disqualifying offense through FDLE. But if you got arrested for an aggravated battery, right? You go to court, you plead not guilty, right? You go to trial, you win, you get a not guilty verdict. You can apply to FDLE, even though that's a disqualifying offense, because there was no withhold on that, because you went to court and you were found not guilty, you were acquitted, you can apply to have that expunged. Not sealed, expunged. Say you get arrested. I'm sorry?
Excuse me. So see, that's where, so when you're found not guilty, that's actually still technically on your record then, what you're saying.
Everything stays on your record until you petition, until you get it removed.
And that's why there's some information. That's why some of the stuff you were saying, I told Dara, I'm like, I'm listening. I did not know. I'm under the impression when you found not guilty, they just throw it out. I mean, it's no longer there. I mean, your arrest record is still there, your mugshot, but I did not know all of that. That's
and I mean, it shows up as not guilty, which says, okay, this person was arrested, this person was charged, this person went to trial, and this person was found not guilty of this offense. This person is not guilty of this offense. It's there, yeah, but if you don't want that there, you can apply to FDLE to have that expunged, because that's not guilty. Say you get arrested for a burglary. Get arrested for a burglary, right? They take you downtown, whatever, you submit it to, they submit police, whatever agency arrested you, submits that paperwork to the Broward County State Attorney's Office, right? The filing attorney that gets the packet, the arrest packet, it's called an arrest packet, determines that there's not enough evidence there and a likelihood of a conviction is not there, and they decide not to file on it. So you have a burglary with a non-file. You can apply for FDLE to get that expunged.
Great information. I don't think too many people knew that. I'm being honest.
I'm being educated myself.
You can apply to, just because you, and this is the thing, people can have these things on their record and they feel like because nothing happened, then it's cool. It still comes up. Just because it was non-file, right? Because what happens is people say, because you got to think about inherent biases, y'all. You got to think about the inherent bias. So if a Black dude applies for a job, they do a background check, they see a burglary, even though it was non-file, nothing happened. Oh, but that doesn't mean he didn't do it. He probably did it. They probably just couldn't prove it. You see how that works?
Yeah.
You see how that works? But if it's a non-file, if our office non-files, if our office no infos it, if our office no process it, if it's no process, right? If our office abandons it, those charges qualify to be expunged. Expunged. Now, there are some disqualifying charges. And there are charges that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement says, if you plead to any of these charges and it results in a withhold of adjudication or an adjudication, now an adjudication is equivalent to a conviction. An adjudication is equivalent to adjudication, conviction, conviction, adjudication, same thing, same thing, same thing. Okay. Now, a withhold is a withhold of a conviction, right? However, what it's saying is that you entered a plea of no contest, or now when you enter a plea of no contest, no contende, what you're saying is, I'm not admitting to it, but I'm not denying it. I'll take whatever the court is going to give me. That's no contest. I'm not admitting to it. I'm not denying it, but I'll take, that's a no contest plea, right? So when the court issues a withhold, and the court you can plead guilty to something, and the courts can still withhold adjudication, right? Because that can be a condition of the plea agreement that was worked out, right? Your Honor, if the defendant agrees to it, the state is willing to withhold adjudication, place this person on probation, yada, 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 right? Y'all follow me?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So say you go to court for, something like burglary of, like a grand theft, right? Which is a third-degree felony, because anything over $300 is a felony, right? So you go to court for a grand theft. You enter no contest, right? They withhold adjudication, put you on probation, you serve your probation, you pay your fees, you do everything, you're a model probationer, whatever. You get successful termination from your probation, right? Sealing and expungement workshop comes up, right? You got that on your record, right? It's public record. Sealing and expungement workshop comes up. That qualifies for sealing. A withhold on a grand theft is not a disqualifying offense. That's not a disqualifying offense. So you can submit paperwork to FDLE through our office. If you come to our workshop, that grand theft is going to qualify. You have a withhold. We're going to help you process your paperwork to get that sealed, right? Now, this is the caveat. And this is why I've had to disqualify so many of people that look like us.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this. If you have ever been convicted of anything, you will never qualify to have anything sealed or expunged. A prior conviction on anything disqualifies you from participating in the sealing and expungement workshop.
That's some good information.
And I heard that Friday. I was very amazed by that. I did not know.
These are things that we didn't know. I mean, we had a pretty good idea, and I heard you say when I watched your video, you said that you even had to educate yourself on it because you knew somewhat about it, but the more you got into it, the more you learned about it, and I'm sitting here learning so much just listening to you.
And I never been to jail before or arrested.
We've never been to jail before.
That's good information for someone else to know.
And I don't even want to find out this stuff, really.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
for the people that did, back in the past or whatever, got in trouble and was arrested and would like to get that information, expunged or sealed. And man, this is some very, very good information here that you provided.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
I'll tell you a quick story. One time, we know this guy at the city of Deerfield when we were working there, and the city hired him. They did his background. They actually had hired him, and they saw that he had his record sealed. Well, they came back and actually fired him after he had been there for maybe a few months. They fired him because he would not allow them to open his sealed record. And I guess he must have got an attorney. Yeah, he went and got an attorney, and he was back at work about a day or two later.
Yeah, because that's illegal. That you can't do that. Yeah, because once it's sealed, they have no legal right to it. That's the whole point of it being sealed.
Right.
They don't have any legal right to it. And so the reason what I had to educate myself on, Daryl, was the traffic criminal offenses. Because I didn't know that traffic stuff can prevent you from getting your record sealed or expunged. Now,
traffic stuff, what do you like? Give me
driving while your license is suspended.
Okay, right. Okay.
I heard
driving while your license is suspended is a traffic offense, but it falls under traffic criminal.
Okay.
It's a traffic offense, but it falls under traffic criminal. And so you have people going to traffic criminal court, going to court for driving while their license is suspended, saying, yeah, I did, I'm gonna pay the fine, paying the fine and getting adjudicated. That's a conviction.
A lot of people just don't realize what they're doing.
That's a conviction.
It's a conviction.
That's a conviction.
Wow.
So and I'm gonna give you an example. I had so many brothers that I had to disqualify from the workshop because they had offenses felonies that qualified to be expunged. But because they had a conviction for DWLS, they did not qualify for the workshop.
Wow.
Because a conviction on any criminal offense, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, it disqualifies you from getting anything sealed or expunged.
I hope people are paying attention to
Right.
this, you know, out there, because man, you are really putting it out there. You're really putting this information out there. And if they don't get it after watching this video, then that's on them. You know, that's on them. I can tell you.
Now, another thing people don't know is and this is for people that have had their records sealed. If you had an offense, a qualifying offense sealed, and FDLE sealed it, and it's a qualifying offense, after 10 years, you can come back and ask for that to be expunged.
After 10 years, okay.
So say I have a grand theft and I got it sealed.
Mhm.
I can come back in 10 years and submit an application to FDLE to have that record expunged.
Expunged.
Great information.
If I haven't gotten any more, you know, trouble or whatever, come back and have it taken out of the system.
Wow. Well, these are things that people don't know.
That's
I
right.
tell you.
That's great information.
I didn't know that either. And before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to tell the public, the people that are watching this podcast right now?
I would like to tell you guys what the disqualifying charges are for sealing and expungement that will never qualify. And these charges will not qualify only if there has been a plea entered and there has been either a withheld or a conviction. It doesn't matter if it's a withhold or a conviction. If it's a disqualifying offense, it won't ever qualify. Now, if you have one of these offenses and nothing ever happened with it, or you were found not guilty, it qualifies for expungement. But if there was a plea entered, there's a withhold, there was a conviction, it will never, ever, ever be eligible. And these are charges that have been handed down by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and there are many. So I'm going to read them off to you guys, okay?
Yep.
So these are the offenses that are listed in section 9430584 of the Florida statute. And these offenses, and these are what we call disqualifying charges for sealing and expungement. Sexual misconduct, illegal use of explosives, terrorism, murder, manslaughter or homicide, assault or battery of household or family members. Let's stop right there. So what is that telling y'all? It doesn't matter whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. If you plead on a domestic violence charge, it'll never, ever, ever be eligible for sealing and expungement. Whether it's misdemeanor or felony. Aggravated assault, felony, battery, strangulation, stalking, luring or enticing a child, human trafficking, kidnapping, and false imprisonment, procuring a person less than the age of 18 for prostitution, lewd and lascivious offenses, arson, burglary of a dwelling. You break into somebody's house. Voyeurism, robbery, a robbery by certain snatching, carjacking, home invasion robbery, abuse of an elderly person or a disabled person, child abuse and aggravated child abuse, sexual performance by a child, certain acts that are connection with obscenity, selling or buying of children, minors, aircraft piracy, manufacturing a controlled substance, drug trafficking, and failing to register as a sexual predator as ordered by the law. These are all disqualifying offenses.
Okay, you can never ever get it taken off. Okay.
Now, with some of those charges then, I'm curious, even though you would never be able to get it expunged, with some of those charges you just named, would they still allow you to possess or carry a firearm? If you know, I don't know if you know.
If you were convicted of these, no, because convicted felons can't.
Right. So all those was felonies just then you just read off.
The only thing that wasn't a felony on here
Voyeurism
was the assault and the assault and battery, which is the misdemeanor domestic battery.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. But I thought they were trying to make domestic violence, domestic battery a felony. at one time.
It is a felony because you can, okay, so there's battery, there's simple assault, right? Those are misdemeanors. And then you have aggravated battery. Then you have battery by strangulation. Now, what the caveat is this: if the battery is committed on someone that is in the house with you, a family member or somebody you're in a relationship with, then it's going to be domestic violence.
Gotcha. Wow. Very good distinction there.
Right? Because domestic violence is very specifically defined. The person has to be family, residing in the same home with you, or there has to be an intimate relationship, or you have to have a child together.
The boyfriend and girlfriend thing, like when they break up and they get into a fight, that's domestic violence.
That right. So the statute is very specific about that.
Wow.
I hope people stay out of trouble.
Yeah, you have anything else, man? Because she provided us with a ton of information here, man. I tell you, man.
Come back in October for human trafficking.
Wow.
That's domestic violence awareness month.
I'm sorry, domestic violence. I think human trafficking was January.
Yes.
Domestic violence. That's come back for that.
Right.
Definitely. Invite me back. I'll definitely be back.
Yes.
Well, we've been talking to Jumorrow Terra. She works for the Broward County State Attorney's Office down there. She works with State Attorney Harold Pryor, which we had him on our show. Yes. Make sure you say hello to Harold for us and tell him to come by and see us again. And you're welcome anytime to come on the Adams Brothers podcast here, Jumorrow. Thanks for providing our viewers and the people out there this ton of knowledge and wisdom. And we appreciate you coming on the show. And thank you so very much for stopping by the Adams Brothers podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, y'all. God bless and have a great night.
God bless you.
To you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's great information.